Do you recognize what these are? Most people probably know what they are, but if you don't know what they are, they're avocados. And you could see that these have both been cut open. These are out of my freezer, so they're kind of frozen together. So I can't remember if I had put these aside as worm food with the seeds inside or not. And I kind of thought I would just leave them be and put them in the bin as is and just see what happens. You know, in short time they'll thaw out and separate. Worms will get in there. But I just figured, you know, let's leave them as is and see how they hold up to time. So this is the bin that's slated to get fed today. Can you tell which one it is? It is pretty generic. Not a lot of signs to give it away. Let's just get this off here, and then maybe some people will begin to figure out which one it is. Do you know which one it is yet? Last time I created this illustration to go with this bin right here, I got a couple positive comments about it, so I figured I would do a revival of the diagram I created a week ago. Well, not even a week ago, it was 10 days ago, because it was 10 days ago, right there, 10 days ago that this bin got its fourth feeding of apple peels. And the reason it's shown this way is because the apple peels went to the corner that's same as what you see on the illustration. And just as an extra marker, we've got our feeding zone indicator showing where we last fed. But the interesting thing is that on each occasion, the previous feeding has remained relatively undisturbed. So we've been able to go back on each occasion and then even see how many days have passed since that particular feeding was put in here. So today, after 10 days, we'll have a chance to see how the apple peel's doing, and we'll also now get a chance to see how the mixed veggie mix that's 20 days old is doing. Actually, after 10 days, last time we were in here, I think we didn't even see anything left of that. But the thing, we're definitely going to see some leftovers of the pumpkin stem, which now goes back 28 days. And last but not least, now that we're actually returning to position number 1 for the 5th feeding in here, it's going to have to share space with whatever leftovers of the mashed potatoes are in there, if there's any. I think last time we might have still seen a little bit in there, but I don't remember for sure at this point. I did skim through the video from last time just to help me reconstruct the illustration. I tried to utilize elements from it, but I've also tried to make it easier to read. So hopefully you enjoyed that little diagram to help put things into perspective. So these European night crawlers appear to be hanging out here, and I could, you know, as soon as I move one, I look for another one. Now I could see a couple here, and some of them are so small, it makes me wonder if I would really even be successful in getting all of them off of here. Maybe it's just best that I fold this thing in half. Sometimes I'll just fold the thing in half so that when I put this aside, any worms that are still on it don't freak out from the bright lights and the dry air and start squirming and trying to leave the paper, looking for something better. They're going to end up on the floor, and that's not better, that's for sure. So, like we usually do, we use this as an opportunity. Instead of just putting the new food into the place where it belongs, position 5 at this point, we can go back to positions 4, 3, 2, 1, even know how many days have passed since that last feeding, and start to get a sense of how that particular food item does over time. And we don't have to worry about it getting disturbed too much, because that's the whole idea, is that you leave behind what was there and not put other things in there. And with that, you get to see what happens over that specific amount of time. Now, when it comes to apples, I've just sort of grown accustomed to not expecting them to go too quickly. This is the core of the apple, but for the most part, what you're seeing down here is the peel and the skin. So these were just apple peels for the most part, a few cores. And the worms definitely like this stuff, right? So I'm going to just turn it over so we can get a view of some of the worms that are coming by, probably enticed by the moisture to a high degree, but you would have to think that basically the sugar content of the food also plays a part. And then this is pretty easy to recognize too. It's a banana peel, went in here with the apples too. So that's what that sort of stuff might look at after 10 days in your bin if you were to feed that to a batch of European night crawlers that have an appetite similar to mine. And you know, despite a healthy appetite, a lot of my worms have been slowing down a little bit lately because the temperatures down here in my wormery have dropped a bit, so I'm definitely factoring that in, so I'm not setting my expectations in most cases too high, which is kind of cool because as a result sometimes you're pleasantly surprised. Here we've got the corner which was labeled as a mix consisting primarily of carrots, which I think, you know, even last time we were in here we didn't really see any leftovers at that point. Carrots are not the sort of thing you're going to see stick around for very long unless there's something weird going on. So I think for the most part what we're finding in here are possibly leftovers of other things, but definitely not carrots. This would probably be a banana peel just based on its texture and appearance. Everything else to me looks almost like probably just bedding combined with castings and just maybe a little residual mush of this and that, but nothing else really discernible. So that's a position that looks like it would easily accept the next batch of food soon. Not a lot of leftovers there. Here's the banana peel. Let's get that submerged so it stays under the surface a bit. Going a little bit further back in time now, right? We're going to be digging here, but 10 days back took us to apple. 20 days back took us to the carrot mix, which is pretty much gone at this point. Here, there was an 8-day interval between these two feedings, and here we put something a little interesting. Well, last time I succeeded in zeroing in on it by checking here first, close to the middle of the bin, and there it is again. It's the stem of the pumpkin, so it's a good size object, that's for sure. This was a good size pumpkin, and it does seem like worms usually take a shine to it for whatever reason, because I always find worms hanging out on it. Look at that, little tiny ones hanging out right there too. So that's kind of cool. But other than the pumpkin stem, which had a big section of the pumpkin, you know, the meaty portion of the pumpkin's fleshy part over there too. So that part of it was gone pretty fast. By last feeding, we saw no sign of it. I think in the previous feeding, after checking in after just those 8 days that had passed when we came in here to put the next feeding in, there was a little bit left, but by the time we got here last time, 18 days, this was already polished off like this pretty good. I guess the other thing we did was try to give it a little bit of a squeeze to see if, you know, like, is it sort of deteriorating from the inside out? And it definitely feels like it's softening up, so being submerged in a worm bin probably helps a lot with the breakdown process. This corner seems pretty popular. I think besides the pumpkin there was also Brussels sprouts, and that's just the sort of thing I wouldn't expect to see leftovers of either, so it's nice in here with lots and lots of worms hanging out all over the place within this section here. This is just a wad of bedding, paper bits. It was such a solid mass though, I thought maybe it was the leftover of something I'd forgotten about, but it was just paper. And, you know, whenever I bump into that stuff I can't seem to resist the compulsion to try to break it apart. So as we've seen already in the other feedings too, bits of banana peel are pretty commonplace in my feedings, although today I didn't bring any down. Today I only brought down the those 2 avocados, so that's okay. You can see if they want banana peel they can go to many other places in the bin to find it. So I just like to try to orient the that pumpkin stem back into the bin the way I found it. So the part of it that had all the fleshy pumpkin is inboard, or well, not inboard, this would be inboard, right? So it's more towards the corner that we fed on that occasion. So that's kind of cool. I wonder how long that stem will take. That's probably going to take forever. Here's something else that's a little bit hard. This is like a mango seed shell husk, and the seed is long gone at this point, and most of the husk is gone too. But as you can see, the worms like it. There's 2 little ones and a big one hanging out on it. So even though it's kind of a tough substance, they continue to nibble away at it. So, all right, that gets us down to business here. Let's get this thing fed, because we're now down to the oldest of the corners, which had the one unusual, not unusual, but just something I don't often use for worm bin feedings, was some leftover mashed potato. This was the first feeding, going back 35 days now, 5 weeks. And yeah, that, this is a 42-day-old bin, so hey, where's that 6th week? So that first week there was no feedings at all. This bin had been built as a bedding only bin. Sometimes I'll pre-build my bins with some food items added as well, but not always. In this occasion, this was strictly just a bedding only bin with no food in it, and they didn't even get food until the first week had passed, after they'd sort of gotten acclimated and settled in. So the first real feeding was this one that we're looking at here, which came after it had reached its 7 days in service. So I'm just picking apart a little bit more here because I thought I saw a hint of something that resembles mashed potato. It was leftovers of a dish that I bought home, sort of takeout. Takeout might not be the right way. I was at like a fundraising community luncheon, and you were able to bring home some portions of what they were serving because they had leftovers, and that's just another way they try to make a few extra bucks. So I bought home some yummy Wiener Schnitzel, and it came with some potato, which wasn't quite as good as the meat. So all the meat was consumed, but there was plenty of potato left. And who knows how it was prepared. They could have dosed it with a good amount of salt, and that could be contributing to why it's not getting the attention that you would think that it would get. But I really don't know why. Maybe there's just something about this particular type of potato. I don't know anything else about it. I didn't purchase it. I didn't prepare it. So now this is, I guess what I kind of got my hands into just was weird, because there's a lot of leaf stems in here. So I guess, this bin is only a little bit over a month old, right? So I got to remind myself sometimes when I encounter things that are like, hey, what's all that doing in there? Well, on my younger bins, I'm pretty cool putting in, all kinds of stuff that I know is going to take time to break down. That's why I'm not too concerned about this, because these shells are going to take some time. As will the seed inside. If the pit's in there, I don't remember if the pits are in there, but if there's pits in there too, that'll take a while. But for a bin that's only 42 days old, this thing's months away from its finish. So, I guess the only thing is, now that we're overlapping, I'd like to still leave remnants of feeding number 1, but I don't even know if they're worth mentioning. A little chunk of this, a little chunk of that. It just doesn't seem like there's going to be a whole lot of it left on future check-ins. So maybe this will, still have the remnants in it, but I doubt we're going to be able to make much sense of it if we bump into it. But maybe if I just throw it all in one little tiny spot as a jumble of its own, then maybe it'll have some leftovers when we come in here next and we could zero in on it. But who knows, maybe not. It might be gone by then for the most part, or so broken down we won't recognize it as our little thing that we left behind for ourselves. So let's get these avocados in here. I cleared out the space because I didn't want to expose any worms to like these two large frozen chunks of material that are probably going to take a little time to thaw out. So this corner isn't going to get much attention until these food bits thaw out. But since I don't want to just drop them in, with nothing, I want to throw a little bit of my pre-made bedding down, and then we'll position them in here somehow. I don't know how it would be best, but it seems like if we aim the opening kind of into the bin, maybe they'll encounter that opening right from the start and make their way in. I don't know. We'll probably come in here next time to feed the next corner when we return to this corner here and find that those things haven't even been opened up yet, or no worms have gotten inside yet. But I figure this might be an interesting way to start it, so I'm going to start it this way. Before we sprinkle in a little bit more bedding to cover this feeding zone up, let's give them a little bit of my grit, which is this pulverized eggshell, and then we can get this thing covered up and back to work. So these Euros are doing a nice job. It's kind of cool when you start probing around in a section where there's a whole lot of worms. Every section had a whole lot of worms, so it was kind of cool checking in each corner, because each corner seemed to have some really good action going on. The worms definitely seem to be enjoying the different foods that that they've been receiving so far. I'm not so sure about the these avocados, because I think there was a third and a fourth one with this batch, and those were all bad, and I've already since tried composting them, but it always seemed with the other ones that I've already depleted, these are the last two at this point, but the other ones that I've tried feeding to the worms never seem to take on a lot of popularity in the bins where I've positioned them. They just seem to like sit there for very long periods of time, and whether these are the same type of avocado that just didn't seem too popular in the bin or had the same problem as the other ones, I don't know, but my hope is that it there's a banana stem, let that remain as part of that corner too. But yeah, I don't know what to expect from these avocados, so I'll be keeping my fingers crossed. I know a lot of people have really good luck feeding the avocados, but I already had a little bit of experience with the batch that these were part of, and I didn't have a lot of success, so we'll see. Alright, fun. This bin is always kind of cool. It's just interesting to be able to go back and then look at your notes and say, oh, that was how many days ago, and actually get to see that particular food item's deterioration over the passage of time. So often when I feed in the same exact spot, the old feedings just sort of get pushed outboard and aren't really distinguishable, so who knows where certain stuff is, and even when you find it, it's hard enough to recognize it. That's why if you know what you're looking for when you go to a particular spot, then you've got that much extra help to be able to figure out what's what, right? So yeah, let's try to leave some of these bits of castings and leaf fragments in the bin. Just end up going down the sink, and they make more sense back in the bin, right? So I've just got what else do I have to do here? Start getting these coverings back on. The plastic's helping a lot, keeping the moisture in the system. I must have had it pretty thoroughly covering things, because I don't remember us bumping into any dry sections. So the bin's definitely doing a good job hanging on to its moisture. And I think the foods we add too, like all those apple we added last time, that's going to bring with it a good amount of moisture. Avocado, perhaps not so much, but still, moisture in here is definitely not a issue. So now if I put it this way, we'll definitely recognize it the next time we come, but this way, it's a little bit more of a covert operation. So let's go with that. It's more interesting. Alright everyone, that's it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please remember to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really very much appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel too. That's really appreciated as well. Alright everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching.